Okay, back again to pick up where we left off at the end of our viewport and sheet layer video. So I'm on my sheet layer that I created, and I see my two viewports for the frame and the cover plan. And now we need to do some things to annotate, as we say, add notes, maybe some more dimensions, and get the drawing labels functioning correctly. Here's how you can do that. So first of all, I added dimensions on the design layer already, and you see them here in the viewports. That's fine, but another way that's often better once you get into complex drawings is to do it on the sheet layer instead. Let's look at how that could work. First of all, I'll go get my dimension tool, and I'll just pick the simple constrained linear mode. And I'll zoom in a little so you can see. Watch what happens if I'm just in my sheet layer and I try to dimension something. Remember that the sheet layers are 1:1 scale. So if I try to dimension this, it's completely wrong. It's 2 inches. That's the printed size of a half-inch scale drawing of something that's 4 feet wide, right? So that doesn't work, but here's the way you make it work. I'll delete that, get back to my arrow selection tool, and if I go to a viewport and I can either right-click and say Edit Annotations, or I can double-click and it'll get me there automatically. This gets me into this yellow bordered window where now I'm editing the annotations, which gives me access to the design layer's scale. So for one thing, when I go in with my dimension tool now, and I dimension things, they actually wind up the correct dimension, accounting for the scale. So I could go and do all my dimensions here, or I could add more if there were something I missed that I wanted to add a dimension for. I could do that here, right? And then the other thing I could do is fix my drawing labels. So I actually have a label that was automatically generated by the viewport tool for each of my viewports. I'm going to delete one of them because I don't need it. I'll just use a single label for this whole sheet. And that's going to be enough for this viewport. I was editing the cover plan. How do I get out of the edit window? Right now it's hiding behind object info palette. So if you don't or if you don't dock your palettes to the edges of your screen, this exit button might be hiding behind something. So that's where it always is, top right corner. Click it, and I'm back to my sheet layer. Now I can edit the other viewport. So double click. Now I want to keep this drawing label. I'm just going to make some changes to it. So I like to put it where it kind of always should be, down towards the bottom right corner. And there are some things in object info that I can do to adjust it. First of all, I can fill it out. So I'll zoom in a little here. Drawing title. So whatever this is, it's a stagecraft demo flat. That's what I've been calling it. Drawing number. So if you're doing a set of drawings, like a designer's drawing set where there's a ground plan and elevations, multiple sheets, you would in fact number them, with the ground plan being number 1. But when I'm doing construction drawings like this for the scene shop, I tend to just take the drawing number and turn it into the initials of the show that we're working on. So I would say in this case, like, I don't know, SC for stagecraft maybe. And there's that, so that shows up in this little bubble. And then I can pick some other stuff. You can play around with a lot of these settings. I'm not going to show them all to you. You can change the way the scale displays. You can change whether you have the sheet number displayed along with the drawing number. I usually don't. Oh, there we go. You can change the bubble style. I like to use circle or round rectangle just because that's what I like. And I like to also check off draw full width bubble just because that's what I like. You can do what you want as long as it's like consistent through all of the things you produce. That's a good idea. And then we can change the text size. First, we're gonna though change the bubble scale factor to make that outline, that bubble, a little bigger to fit a bigger text into. So if I make it a bigger number than 1, it's going to make it a larger size, like so. 1.5 usually works, but depending on your sheet size, like 1.5 might look too small still, or it might be too big. So do what works for the size paper you're working on. I'm going to drag that over again so it's kind of nicely aligned in the corner. Okay, I can also change the text size, so maybe I want the title to be bigger. Yeah, maybe I want the scale to be bigger too. Maybe I also want the sheet number, or drawing number rather, to be bigger. Something like that. Make it look good, and then you're done. I'm gonna, once again, because it keeps resizing itself, get it in that corner nicely. Okay, exit. That's done. Now all I'm missing is some notes to tell people important stuff. So what could I do here? Maybe I want to double click and edit the annotations again inside my frame plan. So that maybe I want to do a call out note. I probably wouldn't really, but let's just pretend I want to do a call out note here where I want to say that this is on face. You know, so I could do stuff like that. Alternately, I would probably really just take my text tool, the way I usually do this particular note, just say face, like that. Drag it around, get it nice and centered. Maybe that's a little too big, make it 10 point. Good. And now watch what that does. Because I edited the annotations for the viewport, now that note is attached to that viewport. So if I move the viewport, the note moves with it. If instead I made a note here, just blah, 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 whatever, if I do it outside of the viewport, then the note doesn't move with the viewport, which can be a problem if I decide I want to rearrange things later. So that's another reason it's good to edit annotations rather than doing it on the design layer. But maybe I want my general notes text block to be self-sufficient and not move with any of the other viewports, because I know that I always want it to be down on this corner of the page. So outside of editing annotations, just right on the sheet layer, I'll put a text block here, and I'll say note. And sometimes I'll make that bold print, and then unbold what's below, and just general notes about materials typically, right? So like frame is 1x4, pine, cover is probably like 1/4 inch Luan or birch plywood, and fastener choices, glue and staple. I don't need to say what kind of staple. Any carpenter who knows what they're doing is gonna pick the right narrow crown versus medium crown staple, depending on whether they're doing the cover or the frame. So that's good enough. And this is a pretty simple drawing. That's all I think I need to say in these notes. So there it is. And then I can zoom out and, you know, arrange it however I like, once again. And that's that. That's notation. So now I'm ready to print. If I wanted to print directly from the sheet layer, I could. So if I'm in Vectorworks and my computer's connected to a printer, I can go to my sheet layer and just go to File and say Print. And it's just a little bit more, well, if I were to be in a, I don't have a printer connected, so I can't show you. But it's just like any other print dialog. In this case, it's wanting me to make a PDF file because that's the only printer I have connected. So anyway, I'll cancel out of that. What you're going to do mostly for your projects probably is go to File and then Export so that you can make a PDF file to share. So under the Export drop-down menu, you have an Export PDF option. Click that, and you can just kind of leave everything as it is. All the defaults should work, and say Export. And you just get a save dialog where you can save it. And it'll make you a nice PDF file.